Keyen being a very untraditional person on our calls, coming on with either no shirt on or, a hoodie and shades on, and he's yelling at the camera at me and cussing at me or doing whatever he needs to do or feels he needs to do or what's coming up in him to help me have my breakthrough and change my pattern is something that I don't think most mental health professionals are aware of or have the courage to do. So that's probably the thing that I would summarize that I respect most from him and has been most beneficial. I think something along the lines of take your fucking shirt off. And that's how we started that session. And I just remember there was a lot of powerful moments like that where he was trying to get me to tap into my masculinity and the savage part of me that I needed to tap into. And the other of Keyen is, like I said, his ability to know what the space needs at that time and be obedient to stepping into that divine inspiration that comes up within him. And it really is a great representation and example of how I should do that in my life, not only with my clients, but just in general with personal relationships or any actions that I need to take in my life. And he really shows that and displays that because I've spent a lot of money on therapy and seminars and different techniques over the years, but he's been honestly what I've is with so much positivity and so much information out there in the world. I think we're craving truth more than ever. And sometimes a lot of times, most times, truth hurts, but truth is what will set us free. So him coming with his brash, aggressive approach sometimes, because that's what motivates me. That's the kind of style that I listen to and resonate most with. Somebody telling me like, hey, you're screwing up or you're effing off in this area or you need to have more results here, and just giving it to me straight and in a hardcore way and do that. And Keyen really has the courage and comfort in himself and awareness spiritually to know when he needs to step into it, and he's willing to do it, and it pierces and penetrates to my soul in a way that I really need. So I've really appreciated that. What was really powerful about Keyen is really being able to break through and penetrate through the barriers that most other people aren't able to penetrate through. He really could drive deep into the subconscious and pull stuff out that I either wasn't willing, courageous, or aware enough to reveal. And he definitely has an ability to open that up in people, and the courage to ask the hard things or say the necessary things that may be taboo or uncomfortable, and he'll just kind of penetrate and pierce through and say it. And he's very in tune with his say those things that may come off as aggressive or uncomfortable, even though they're what I needed at the time. I think it started with, one of the first sessions that we had. He and I were connected on social media, and he had seen that I had been posting different events and different things that I was doing for community events and things that I'm passionate about, putting together races and cold plunge events and all the different types of things. And he was like, "Man, it seems like you're on fire." And I was like, "Yeah, of course I'm on fire. This is what I live for." And he was like, "Oh, interesting. Why would you do then what you live for?" And I really stuck with that question. And I was like, dang, yeah, I don't really have a great answer. And then I think the emotions that emerged after that was probably just feeling of not being enough or knowing how to do it. And he really walked me through that journey actually of transitioning from working at Google in 2020, starting my own coaching business last year, which was my true purpose and passion and what I've always known I wanted to do. And so he really just helped me in that transition and empowered me to step into that. So any emotion that would come up as far as not feeling like enough, not feeling experienced enough, powerful enough, whatever limited beliefs that I was facing at the time, he really helped crush all of those doubts. And that led to even surrounding different negative thoughts or doubts, like I said, that I struggled with, and all the way to the point of us dialoguing between me, him, and then this other version of myself, this darker side of me, and us three having a three-way conversation in a way. And that was a really powerful session that I remember and helping me break through some of those limitations and barriers that a long, long time, probably 10, 15 years plus. It was the first official life coach that I had there. I guess I did say coaches. I've been to other facilitated by coaches, but never pulled the trigger to actually hire a life coach. My kind of some form of ego. I was like, especially Keyen, who was around the same age as me. So I'm already had a big ego, and I'm thinking like, what can this guy teach me about life or discipline or you having more success when I'm very passionate about studying all of that on my own. And then we were in a men's group together, and then just because of the proximity and the relationship that it built, I was like, oh man, this guy, he definitely has a lot of power that he can add in my life. And so the main comparison would be I did do a lot of therapy and counseling with psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists over the years. And I think my experience with them, mental health professionals, was more so them checking off boxes and following manuals. So I remember specifically one of my first experiences with a therapist. We're going through the initial manual and all the protocol questions, and I just felt like she wasn't actually getting through to what my true issue was, and she was never going to be able to figure out what that was because the human mind and soul is way more complex than just with a lot of mental health professionals is I would leave there and get much from it. And so I would always tell myself that in order for me to learn from somebody, because I'm already such a high performer and very driven and disciplined, and if it's how can just some mental health professional that's following a manual actually have the impact on me that I'm looking for. And I live by a philosophy that you can only extend what you possess, and what we possess is what we have experienced or received through grace by God. And that was a tension point that I had with mental health professionals. And so when I met with Keyen, he wasn't the typical traditional mental health professional and would go that route of having his clipboard and pen paper and just asking the basic questions of how are you feeling and now what are your emotions like today and what technique can we implement to kind of change that happiness for the next couple of days, and maybe what positivity do you need to share with yourself. Like, it wasn't any of that. Well, I would say it definitely made my relationship with God way stronger, because when I'm removing again these limitations in my mind and operating in a very limited way and view of my life, as in before I was working a 9 to 5 in corporate and not living up to the true divine inspirations from my soul and the true dream that I had and destiny that I had. And when I stepped into that, it helped build my spirituality up to a whole nother level because I felt way more connected to God. Um, People, I think, for the most part, settle with their 9 to 5 jobs or corporate jobs, asking their true heart desire because of comfort. And in that place of comfort, it's hard to build a relationship with God. And outside of the comfort zone is where the relationship with God only develops because of the the necessity for a relationship with God outside of our comfort zone. And so, yeah, stretching myself in a lot of ways, but in the most rewarding way, because there's nothing more rewarding than, again, following the divine inspirations of our soul and heart. Definitely built a stronger relationship with God for sure.
Yeah, so main results, I mean, there was a lot, but one of them that I can remember was a lesson that I've taken now from working with Keyen is whatever I got to do to elevate my frequency and vibration to the necessary point to attract what I want in my life, it's always worth the investment. The cost is always worth it. And following the divine inspirations of heart and soul typically come with a risk and sacrifice, and a lot of time a financial risk and sacrifice. And so that was a lesson that I took from it because of a testimony that happened from working with Keyen that I'll share in a second. But after that experience, I was like, doesn't matter the cost, whatever it is that is aligned with a divine inspiration, regardless of if I can understand it or justify it practically, I have to lean into it. And so he was pitching me on a program early on, and it was a lot of money. And I was like, dang, like, that's a lot of money. I don't know if I could afford that. I was about to get married. This was last year. I had about a 6 or 7 month runway to get married. So I'm tapping into some of my wedding funds because my wife and I funded our wedding on our own. And so I'm like, man, I'm going to be using the money from the wedding for the coaching. And so it was definitely intimidating, but I pulled the trigger, and he was really encouraging about the investment with me and walked me through it. And then crazy thing happened. I made the investment, and then the next day I closed a deal that happened to be the exact amount of the investment that I made into Keyen for coaching. And from there, I was just like, that was a God moment of like, all right, I'm listening. Like, I have to take the faith to give in order to get, and step into these inspirations that I have and honor and be obedient to it, regardless of how intimidating or uncomfortable it may feel. And so that was a great lesson from working with Keyen that I've taken from that, is like anytime and opportunity I get, whether it's financially tied and related or just in general of like stepping into those uncomfortable moments in life, to stick to that. And then really the big takeaway is what I've mentioned a few times on this call, is honoring and being obedient to the divine inspirations coming up from the soul, not the mind, not the ego, not my comfort, not my past, but whatever divine inspirations are coming up at the moment, big or small, honor and step into that. And that's been a lesson I've taken from working with Keyen for life, really. I'll say about Keyen and speak highly about him on is he is very in tune with his spirit and the spiritual essence in him and the power that comes from that. And I've had to talk to some of my contacts that I've referred to Keyen that sometimes I've even gotten offended by him because of the power that it brings. Is like, you really got to discern through what he's saying, what he's doing, what he's asking of you, and the spiritual power he's coming from. Because again, uh, when somebody is tapped in and aligned to that spiritual power, it's not always going to feel comfortable. The opposite is actually more true. The whole reason that we hire coaches and somebody like Keyen is to push us outside of our comfort zone, because in our comfort zone, that's where we are not growing, and therefore we'll be receiving the same results that we've always been receiving. And so being able to discern his intention in some of the brash, aggressive approach that he has sometimes would be advice. And then going all in once you're in and once you're committed, really go all in with his style and his approach and humbling yourself, being obedient to what he's saying and playing all out, regardless of how uncomfortable or different it may feel, because it is. Because in order to get different results, you got to do different things. Those would probably be the two points of advice.